Hello and welcome to the Reflections in Citizenship Training Workshop, originally developed on September 29th, 2020. My name is Lori Stanziola and I'm the PTA Arts and Education Chairman for the state of Kansas. And I'm very excited about growing both the Reflections and the Citizenship programs in our state. What we're going to cover fairly quickly is what is Reflections in Citizenship and why do them, why it's important to have these programs in the schools. Getting started, what's involved, covering the basics of each of the programs, running the programs in your school, and also the timelines that need to be considered when you run the programs. And then helpful hints that we've learned over the years, as well as other ways to get information. And then finally, my contact information will be available if you have further questions. We'll start with Reflections. That's actually a national PTA program that was started in 1969. So they just recently celebrated their 50th anniversary of the Reflections program. Over 10 million participants have taken part in the Reflections program. It's a great supplement to arts in the school. It's especially great this year with remote learning and kind of the craziness of how school is happening this year, to give kids with an interest in the arts this opportunity to be involved. Each year has a different theme, and this year's theme is I Matter Because. This will be a really rich opportunity for kids to create against this theme. The contest for Reflections runs all the way from pre-K through the 12th grade. Citizenship, in contrast, is a Kansas PTA program. It's a signature program that was developed in the state of Kansas, very unique. And this one provides an opportunity for students to think about what it means to be a citizen. It's writing focused. Each year as well has a theme. This year's theme is Caring for My Community Looks Like. The Citizenship Writing Contest is held for grades 5 through 12. Why do these contests? Well, they provide some great opportunities. They allow kids to explore their own thoughts and self-expression. They give access to the arts to many kids who may not have that as reinforced. It offers creativity opportunities, opportunity for recognition, and finally, student engagement and success. There are studies upon studies that say that students that are involved in the arts actually do better in school. Looking at the two contests, these are the general timeframes. The Reflections program runs first, and I'll get into more detail on the different steps, but it kicks off right away, and the deadline for all the winning entries to be submitted to the state is January 15th. The Citizenship program starts about a month after that, in early November, and that's when the contest kicks off, and those submissions are due to the state in February. So it's very easy for the same people to run both programs and just run them back to back. A little more detail about Reflections. Reflections has different art categories. So when you think of a creative contest, it really goes beyond just visual art into film production, literature, dance choreography, music, photography, visual arts. And there's a category for special artists where kids with different abilities can work apart from the grade levels. The different divisions are by grade levels. Pre-K through 2, grades 3 through 5 is the intermediate. Middle school is 6 through 8. So even if you have an elementary school with 6th grade, they will be in the middle school contest. High school, 9 through 12, and a special artist, as I mentioned. You can select certain categories to work with, but we found for the most part, offering all is usually just as easy. Here are some resources that you can use to run the Reflections program, and they are found on the Kansas PTA website with the URL above. And that's kind of a screenshot of what it looks like. But here you'll find the reflections packet that has all kinds of information and gets into the details about the rules for each category, file requirements, et cetera, that kind of thing. There's also an entry form available on the website, and we include a Spanish version, as well as a poster that's also included in Spanish. And then I've created a flyer that you can add to school newsletters. There's some blanks to fill out so you can put your contact information and your due dates on there. And the other thing available on the Kansas website is a celebration of the past year's winners. For the reflection student entries, again, there's the entry packet includes both the rules and an entry form. What you'll want to do to run this in your school is to probably fill out some of the forms that are going to be consistent across all your entries. For instance, your school name, your name and contact information. There's some details about your school, dues and things like that you can find out from the treasurer. Anyway, those all should be filled out by the parent volunteer that runs the program, and then the student fills in the rest. One thing that we want to pay attention to as you take entries in is to make sure that all forms are filled out. There's actually a need for every single form field on those entry forms to be filled out. It needs to be legible and accurate. Ideally, it's digitally typed. And then new this year, we are also accepting digital signatures to really minimize the need for in-person transfer of information. So this will allow you to use email and use shared drives and things like that to collect your entry forms and your entries. Some tips on this is to for visual arts and photography to collect both the artwork and the digital file. Ideally for photography, most photographs now are digitally to begin with, so we would love to have that digital file instead of a print collected. For visual arts, because they are usually not digital to begin with, we can collect the actual artwork and digitize that so that it's done consistently and lit properly and that kind of thing. But we will also accept a digital file for visual arts. When you collect entries, for instance, music, there are certain file formats that are okay to use and certain that aren't. We've in the past had some people submit videos for a music entry, and that is unacceptable. That needs to be a sound file. So pay attention to the instructions and make sure that all your entries are the correct file formats. Again, use email, Google Docs, all those kind of things to streamline your program. That can really make it work, especially in this age where everyone's remote. The other thing is that the form does provide some important information, so you want to keep a copy. Even if you pass along your winners to the next level, you want to keep a copy and keep that safe. And then finally, each entry needs to have its own entry form. So a student may decide to do both literature and visual arts entries, but they need to create a separate entry form for each of those submissions. Here are some of the key dates getting into a little bit more detail. So ideally the program should kick off now. And that really involves promoting the contest, using posters, using the newsletter, really getting the word out that the program has started. Also making the entry forms available to kids. Then toward the end of this period, you'll be collecting entries and kind of auditing those to make sure that they meet the contest requirements. The next phase is on November 6th. Ideally, you have received all your entries, and here you want to organize them and get them ready to distribute to all the judges. This is where you do your school judging and your school recognition. On December 8th is when the winning entries need to be submitted to the council level. And then there's another round of judging at that level. And then those winners are submitted to the field service representatives to go on to the state level. So that state deadline is January 15th. There's state judging level, and then those winners will be announced in approximately the March timeframe. There will, in the spring, also be a student recognition and reception. We'll have to figure out whether that's done physically or virtually, but there will be some kind of event to recognize the state winners as well. Now, a little more detail about citizenship, again, starting a month afterwards. The categories for citizenship are poetry and essay. And again, the same student can enter in each category. This runs from grades 5 through 12. What's on the citizenship or the PTA website for citizenship is another packet that has all the information about running the program. That also includes the entry form and the rules. I'm planning to create a flyer for citizenship that you can also add to school newsletters and other communication. And then finally, there is a list of this past year's winners for citizenship available on the PTA website. For the citizenship student entries, here are some of the highlights relating to the entries. First of all, it needs to be new original work, so not a piece of writing that's been done for another reason. It needs to be related to the theme and created in response to the theme. The work is judged by the relevance to the theme over technique or grammar, meaning this isn't like an English teacher judging the work. It's more of a looking at the content itself and what the meaning is. The poetries is limited between 50 and 500 words, and essay 200 to 1,000 words. So that word count is important to keep track of. Students who are physically challenged may dictate their work to another person. And if a student does not have English as their first language, they can submit entries in their own language. Some tips for that, again, making sure that the entry forms are filled out completely and legibly. We really need to police this because it makes it very hard to get a hold of people later in the contest if we don't have all the right information. Again, double check the word count, and as well as reflections, this is a great opportunity to use digital entry forms and entries in a PDF format. You can also submit a Word document if need be, but PDF would be preferred. The key dates for citizenship, it kicks off in early November. And again, promoting the contest, making the entry forms available and collecting those, similar steps to the way Reflections is run. The judging period goes from December to early January, where you have the local judging, the results, and the school recognition for that. They're submitted to council in January, and there's a council level judging, and they go to the field service representatives after that. And again, a February 15th state deadline, and a winner's announced in March, and again, student recognition and reception in tandem with the Reflections reception. So here are some general steps for success for running the programs in your schools. First of all, planning. Check your school calendar, make sure there aren't any conflicts with big dates on the school calendar, and then plan in reverse to the deadlines. So making sure that you meet those. You want to determine the categories and divisions that you're going to offer, ideally all of them. You can download materials and customize them, print handouts and posters, or email them. And it's also good to consider a budget for activities and for promotional materials, and maybe even for prizes. And then promoting the contest, there are lots of ways to promote it. Ideally, you want to look at any opportunity for communication you can. You can talk to the art and the music and the writing teachers, but we want to try not to add to their workload, especially this year, since they are sometimes doing double duty in both remote and in-person learning. On the other hand, they can be tremendous resources in recommending to students and encouraging students to enter the contest. So it's great for them to understand what the theme is and what the timing is. Use your school's social media, your Instagram accounts, your Facebook accounts to promote the programs. You can do that with posting the posters digitally or locally in businesses using the flyers. And because there's a dance section to Reflections, it's great to consider local dance studios. Judging the entries. This is an area that can be a little bit daunting, but it doesn't really need to be. Ideally, you want to tap into judges who are experienced or professionals in the different disciplines, either writing or visual arts, filmmaking, etc. You can get recommendations both from your school or also tap into local pros or colleges or universities to ask people if they'd be willing to judge. Most people are very willing to help out because it's such a great cause and it's so encouraging to the students. When you identify your judges, then you want to organize the student work according to the different grade levels and make the reviewer packet available to them. That will help them understand how to score the work and give them a kind of a checklist to create their judging. You want to think through the time frame and the venue. Now in the age of COVID, it probably makes sense to do a lot of this through email or possibly shared drives to allow the judges to access the work and the information remotely. One thing that's very important is to make sure the judging is blind so that student names and schools are not visible when the judges make their evaluations. There are no ties. So if a judge comes, if two pieces of work score the same number, the tiebreaker is the interpretation of the theme. So that's really the highest priority for judging, and anything that's tied, that will be the tiebreaker. And then finally, confidentiality. It's important to maintain confidentiality about the scores and keep that process close to the vest. The reviewer packet contains a letter welcoming the judge to the contest, instructions on how to judge, and there's a rubric that, like a grid that allows them to score, to understand how to score the work, and then finally a scorecard to record their interpretation. Finally, you want to celebrate your entries once you get all the results of the judging. And here, we'd really recommend that you honor as many kids as you can. It's an extra effort to even participate in the contest. So it's great if you can recognize all the kids who took part. You want to announce your awardees and also consider things like pictures with permission. You can do a celebration event potentially, or maybe it's a virtual event. There are certificates and awards available. And I can also help with if you need award templates for the contest. You want to display the work if you can, potentially virtually. Again, that may be on the school website, but it could be in the school if the kids are back to classes. School yearbooks are another great way to reinforce the contest. A page of reflections and citizenship winners is always great. And then finally, again, like you promote the contest, you can also celebrate the winners on social media. Once you have your contest results, the first place in each category is the one that moves on to the next level. So that may be the council level, or it may be directly to the state level. Here, we are planning to really focus on digital sharing. So we would like to have all the entry forms and the submissions shared digitally. If there's a problem with that, we can make other arrangements, but that would be our first choice. And also, if it is daunting at all to think about digitizing some of the entries or the scores for music or things like that, we'll definitely be available to help support you on that. One exception to that, again, as I mentioned, is visual arts, since it is kind of tricky to digitize that consistently and get the lighting right. We are planning to collect that physically and digitize it at the state level so that we make sure we get the best possible digital copy of the work. Student recognition. For the state of Kansas, we will do a spring reception. This year we actually had kind of a drive-by reception, so it was in person, but it was very distant and safely conducted. We'll see kind of what the year holds, but my guess is that we'll probably do something along those lines again this year. And one thing I wanted to mention is that some of the Kansas students have been recognized nationally in the Reflections program, so that's pretty exciting. So here's my contact information. You can use my personal email or my Kansas State PTA email, and I am happy to answer questions, provide support, or support you in any way in running the contest in your school. We would love to grow both these contests in the state of Kansas, and we want to support you however we can. Thank you so much.